Well, let's go ahead and start then and call this to order. And Amber, will you take roll?
Sure.
Thank you.
Bill,
Here.
Byron,
Here.
Mike Crowley,
I'm here and I'm trying to help Ruben get on as well.
Okay.
Cindy, Rita,
Morning.
Carl,
Here.
Candy,
Here.
Mandy,
She's here. I'm looking at her, but she's muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. Cassie,
She's here too, Amber.
yes. Kalea
Here, good morning.
and Kara.
Here.
And I just got an email from Ruben.
Yeah. I'm sending it to him right now, Amber.
Okay, great. So everyone's present except Ruben, and I don't see our commission liaison, Commissioner Russell, here just yet either.
Okay. Vanessa, is it okay if we proceed or should we wait?
Oh, no, we can proceed. Is it housekeeping?
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll go straight into housekeeping and just had a couple of things. I hope everybody had a great holiday weekend. If you celebrate Easter, I know my family and I did. And then I'm sure by now you've all heard that at the last TREC commissioners meeting or at the last TREC meeting, they did not accept our recommendation. And I think we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But let's stay focused on what our job is, and that's to make recommendations to the commissioners, and their job is to approve it or not approve it. That's how it's supposed to work. And in this case, they didn't accept our recommendation, and that's okay. So Vanessa, will you do some housekeeping for us?
Sure. Hello, everybody. So we are virtual, and going, with virtual comes some other issues, things you need to be mindful of. I know some of you are virtual more often than not, but if you are a member of the committee, we do ask that you have your camera on. We also ask that you stay muted if you're not speaking, and that's just because inevitably there's something that happens. I always say it's like your neighbor's yard person shows up. So it just helps with the noise. And if you are attending as a guest, we ask that you not put your camera on just so that we can have the members' faces up there. If you can't see everyone, you can switch it to I think it's gallery view. Is that right? I think so. Gallery view, and that should help. Especially, I don't know why Teams doesn't. Everybody's looks different, and I don't understand it. Like it's a different order for everyone. So that gallery view will help should you want to see everyone. So we ask that you stay muted. If you want to speak up as a member, mute yourself and just start talking as though you are in the room, right? Or you can also use that raise hand function, and you can see it on us. For us, it's down at actually on this it's down at the bottom, but for me on my computer, it's up at the top. So just look for the hand, and you can click it and it will raise. It will put a number next to, if there's multiple people who've raised their hand, it'll now put a number so you'll know who was first, who was second. And then just don't forget to unraise your hand when you're done speaking, or else we will probably call on you again and you'll be like, oh no, I forgot to unraise my hand, which happens every meeting. And then we're in this room. I think you guys can hear us pretty well, right? Okay, it sounds like we can hear you all pretty well too, so I think we should be all set in that regard. That's it.
All right. The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to amend the January 8th meeting minutes. Do we have any discussion on that at all? All right. Hearing none, The next question is for Vanessa or Abby. Have we received any public or written comments?
We have not.
All right. Jen, you have the next topic, and that is a staff update on the aerial distance education certification.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, this is just kind of a brief heads up. For those of you who don't know, I've been serving on the Arello Distance Education Standards Committee for the last year plus. And one of the things they're doing right now is revising their current standards and then also their policies and procedures for both asynchronous and synchronous courses. An iteration of this committee back in 2014, prior to which we relied on Arello's distance education certification for our DE courses. We opted out of that back in 2014 and do the review independently ourselves. We felt that at the time, the standards for Arello distance education certification fell short. What the committee is doing now is making recommendations to shore up what their policies and procedures are. And so as a part of that committee, that doesn't mean that we have a vested interest in it or not. That's just separate, but I do think they're doing good work, and I probably will be bringing this work back to this committee to look at a future meeting. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that was happening.
Okay, perfect. Any questions for Jen? All right. Hearing none. Next, there's going to be a staff update on principles 1 and 2 course recommendations. And Vanessa, your name is next to that.
Yeah, and Bill, you covered it, and I think you handled it, or you described it very well, which is the Bill made the recommendation at the February meeting for principles 1 and 2 to become a prerequisite, and ultimately, so he made that recommendation at the meeting. During workshop, we had it as an agenda item. So if you want, you can actually go back to the February workshop. It's on our meetings page. If you just sort it by commission meetings, you'll see the workshop. And there's an agenda item that relates to advisory committee recommendations. And that's where they workshopped it. And, ultimately it didn't, the reasons that they talked about it not going similar to what we were hearing from some of the other providers about, the possible increase in wait times, small schools, they are only offering it at certain times because that's what they're able to do, and then it would hold back the license holder who wants to keep taking their courses but can't get a 1 or 2 in enough time. There's also discussion about how there's many agents who do it out of order, and would it ideally be better for it to be for them to do it first and to do it in order? Probably, right? But the reality is that the providers and sure classes available for folks who want to enter the industry ultimately failed. I think what Bill said is actually.
Yeah, it's
See,
on.
there's a line.
Yeah.
Push the line.
Oh, okay. So Ruben, you are not muted right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Sorry.
good. But what I think that Bill said is probably the most important part, which is advisory committees make recommendations. Those recommendations do not always make it. But what they do is they do get people talking about it. It gets it on the radar of the commission. Sometimes they do go through and you've affected that change. Here, you've had that conversation. You've had it out in an open meeting. We've gotten feedback from a lot of individuals. You all have gone back and forth in your thoughts on it. So although it did not ultimately get taken up, I don't think this is a failed recommendation. I think this really shows the work and the thought that you all put into this group and what you do. And it got the conversations going. And I think it got a lot of people thinking about, you know, how does 1 and 2 fit in, and what is the way to do it, and the reality of how that would be implemented. So, you know, I would say thank you. I know it's been a lot of work, and I know the commission appreciates it. Sometimes they go, sometimes they don't, right?
All right. Well, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Vanessa or any general comments on this whatsoever?
Yeah, I would like to make a couple of comments. I'm a real estate instructor, and so I was doing, over the last couple of months, I've been doing some informal polling of my students and asking, you know, did y'all take your classes in order? Did you take them out of order? What would y'all think if it come down to, and you had to do it again, principles 1 and 2 being your foundation classes, and about 90% of the students all said yes. So I know it's not a formal poll, but from my classes, a lot of people would say, yes, we'd like to have it as, again, being our foundation and then moving forward.
Well, thanks for that information. But so it's something for us to consider as we go forward. Maybe it'll come up again at some point in time. Any other questions?
I have a quick comment, if I may. One thing that, and I see Job is listening in as an alternate member, but one thing that I think we didn't talk about, should this come up again, is consideration for colleges and enrollments for, like, ACC, for example, here has a very strong real estate program. And had this gone through, this would have really affected them. And so, you know, if and when we consider this, or this continues to come around to this committee, I think that we should definitely look into proprietary schools like colleges. That was not, that I recall, something that came up in our discussion previously.
Okay. Good thought.
And
Any
the
other?
chair raised that too. That consideration, Calais.
All right. Well, hearing none others, let's move to agenda item number 8, discussion and possible action regarding revisions to principle 1 and 2 on the course approval forms. And Jen, you're going to provide some information to us.
I will. So just as a reminder, these are back before you since the recommendation didn't pass, but these are the forms as they were modified by ESAC months ago. And so we halted on moving forward with those in order to have the conversation about combining 1 and 2 and or making them a prerequisite. So these are basically the modified forms, revised forms that this committee did that are going forward, I guess, that now you can move forward if you want to.
Right, so you could recommend the May meeting.
Yes.
So I'm sorry, that was a little choppy. I didn't hear what you just said.
So these are the revised forms based on the recommendations of this committee prior to the consideration of making them prerequisites or combined. They have not yet gone forward to the full commission, but at this time you can make that recommendation for these to go forward to the May meeting, unless you want to take a look and make any additional changes prior to sending them forward.
Okay, so everybody's had these for a period of time. Does anybody on the committee want to make any changes to what's in front of you?
I'll move we go forward with presenting the legal or 1 and 2 to the commission as here today.
All right, do we have a second?
We do have public comment.
Okay,
I'll second.
Sorry.
Carl seconded it, and here we have a public comment.
Thank you, Chair and committee members, staff. My name is, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Henry Britt. I'm the Director of Curriculum Development for Champion School of Real Estate. We have some questions about the forms, the draft forms as they're currently constituted. I know a few changes were made, additional subtopics in some cases were added. And I just have some general comments and some specific ones for the committee to consider prior to moving these particular versions of the forms forward to the commission. First and foremost, while we can see the value in moving certain subtopics between chapters where they make more sense, I have to admit that some of the moves seem a little bit arbitrary. And then we get into some specifics. In particular, the math chapter in Principles 2 has been severely reduced and only contains calculators and I think fractions percentages. That's to our minds after internal review, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow for students who may not have been in a math class for years and may not have the educational basis to go into the licensing exam confident on that math. I know it's a small section, but it's an important one. And then this is a general comment on the course approval forms themselves and kind of how that works in the real world for providers. A 30-minute chapter is an almost impossible task given the requirements on top of the content itself. So for instance, the math chapter is now 30 minutes. We have to have a full chapter quiz for that, which is going to take at least 15 minutes, giving us 15 minutes for content, exercises, reinforcement of those concepts that they're learning. One specific thing that popped out to us on review was the removal of listing agreements from Principles 1. Now the listing agreements are not covered in Principles 1 and 2, and we feel like that's probably an oversight. One more is the addition of a 75-minute subsection on TREP forms. They get 2 30-hour courses both on contract law and promulgated forms. And this feels like an excessive amount of time. That topic is addressed in the required section in P1. However, we feel like 75 minutes on that topic is probably excessive. And then lastly, what we saw pretty consistently throughout both forms were timing increases without commensurate addition of subtopics to address those timing increases. This body back in 2014 did some really incredible work, which I've said before, on these course approval forms, and they were, by and large, I think, in fairly good shape. The additional timings without guidance to the provider on specifically what we're expected to require under that subtopic kind of leaves us twisting in the wind a little bit. So I don't think the forms are bad. I just think that they need a little retooling for both educational consistency and with an eye towards actual implementation. And those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Other committee comments?
Here, I have some comments on that, if you don't mind.
Yes, please, Brian.
I was looking at Mr. Britt. I was looking at the math section as well, and what's in the content outlines today, or the course approval forms today, versus what it looks like there, and I tend to agree with this comment, especially about math and being able to implement as an instructor for 30 minutes. And then as an instructor, watching and hearing the struggles of our students when it does come to the concepts that are applied today, or at least presented today in Principles 2, and would recommend revisiting that chapter especially, and bringing that back up to a number of minutes needed in order to cover the topics, especially the topics that we see our students being tested on when it comes to their national exam. Certainly, I don't think that 30 minutes will allow them to have that covered in the classroom. So somewhere, someplace on that form, I think we need about another hour or so in the math chapter in order to fulfill our obligations to the students and presenting the information that they need, not just in their career, but in getting over that hurdle of their national exam. And so I did start messing around with some of the minutes and pulled from a couple of different sections, but I don't know if that's where we want to start with that, is looking at, well, if we were to remove from here, then we could get our math section back up to a level necessary to fulfill our obligations as instructors in schools when it comes to presenting the math concepts to the students. So I think we need to readdress at least that section, and if we do, that's going to pull from other places and retool or time the entire document.
Okay.
That's all.
So I have a point of clarification for Vanessa or Abby. Since we have a motion and a second, how do we go about working on the form if we chose to rework on it? Do we need to vote it and then rework, or can we withdraw and work it? How do we do that?
I think the easiest way is probably just to vote, and then if you do want to make changes, then you basically don't approve the motion.
Let it die.
Just, yeah, let it die, and then you can.
Okay. Mike, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I want to go back to what brought us to this point whenever we were looking through these. And I'm sure we could go through all the minutes and review all of that. But it came down to the point that we only have so much time in this class, and going over the basic math that presumably the student would be coming into this with, that was taking away from the real estate specific areas from which the committee deemed more necessary. And so I'm going to be sticking to what we've decided here. And if there is some remedial math or something that somebody needs before this point, then that's incumbent upon the student to get to that point. But we put a lot of work and effort into getting to this point, and I think it's good as it is.
All right. Any other comments before we take a vote? All right, hearing none. As the motion is, can you restate the motion, please? And that is to accept the form as written. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, all in favor, signal by raising your hand. All right, looks like we have 6 in favor, 5. Wait, the hands are coming down and up. If you're in favor, please raise your hand and leave it up on Teams so we can see it.
Yeah, if you can do it in Teams, that's actually pretty helpful.
All right, we have 6 in favor of the 7 in favor, 8 in motion of the 8 in favor of it. All right, please take your hands down. All opposed, please raise your hand. I can't vote twice. All opposed, please raise your hand. I would say the motion carries.
Yes.
All right. And that will move us to agenda item number 9. Discussion and possible action regarding revisions to the law of agency approval course. And Jen, you're going to provide the introduction on that.
Sure. The form before you in your meeting materials is the revised form based on the recommendations that came out of the last ESAC meeting. So now is your time to take a look at it. Does it look the way that you wanted it to look? Is there anything that you want to change about your recommendations to this form? Or would you like this to also go before the commission?
All right. So committee members, discussion. Carl, you have your hand raised.
Yes, under duties and disclosures to third party, we have duty to respond, but there's no minutes to that one. Is that going to go back above the one duties to the client, duty to respond? Just a question there.
That's a good.
On the first page?
Yes. Okay, so we left that blank intentionally for you all to add. We at the last meeting, I don't think my team went back and listened, and while the content, that subtopic was added, there was no discussion as to the minutes, so we need to decide on that. And I don't know for sure. Let me do some quick math and see if the 125, I
think that includes, I just did some quick math. I think that includes the existing.
includes the existing numbers, right? Okay. So
All right, Candy, you're up next, and then Brian.
All right. I know that we are not looking at this under the hat of realtors, but a lot of us in the room, given the elephant of the room of the settlement that's coming down with NAR, do we need to take into account anything that is probably going to change regarding buyer representation? Obviously, should have always been in writing, but it sounds like it's going to be required. I'm asking that. I don't know if that's something we need to consider as a committee.
I think that's a great question, and I don't know the answer to that. Vanessa or Abby?
Well, I think you've got the required topics under statute already covered here. So, and again, this is an issue a little bit outside the scope of the commission. And of course, representation touches us certainly, but so whether you do, I think is really your recommendation if you think that's important for under one of the headings or topics to discuss.
Okay, Brian?
Thank you, Chair. I thought that we had put the duties to respond as just a subtopic of that particular, whereas it defined third-party obligations to third party, and we're to include that within those 20 minutes. Jen, when you guys went back and re-listened to the discussion on that, could you clarify that for me?
we just didn't hear a recommendation for the number of minutes
Right.
to include. So you can, now you've got, this is also covered under basic agency relationship disclosure and duties to the client.
Right.
Have a duty to respond there. And then for the next main topic, duties and disclosures to third parties,
The third
you can
parties.
look at the existing minutes that are allocated to the different units and see if you want to, if there's any way to pull a few minutes from there to include, you know, like maybe take 5 minutes from general duties of honesty and fairness, 5 minutes from avoiding disclosure and misrepresentation, and then you can come up with a number of minutes to allocate to duty to respond. So this is just, you know, you're already covering duty to respond to the client above, and now this is duty to respond to third parties.
Jen,
Well, could
can
we
I-
just,
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
could we just put another one of those little forward slashes and put it up there with defined third party obligations to third party? And include it within those 20 minutes? I mean,
Okay.
it's a pretty simple topic. Pick up the phone and call people back or email them back. You got 2 days ready to go.
Sure. That would make it really simple, and I don't think this would need to, that's a non-substantive change.
And then, so it doesn't, that wouldn't require then approval, but the other stuff would.
If you make
that
any other changes, yes, but this we can make with no need to revise and represent it to you all.
All right.
Great. So if that were just up with a slash, then we'd be okay. Just include it there.
Right.
Okay, great. That's what I thought we had discussed earlier. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. I think you're 100% correct. Cindy? Cindy?
You.
Can't hear Cindy. I know she's got some great stuff. All right, while we wait for Cindy to get her microphone straightened out.
Cindy, you may have to go to sound settings and like reset. Like on Teams itself. This happens to me every time I try and change my headset.
Or call.
You can call in, that's true. There's a call-in number.
We'll give Cindy time to call in. While Cindy's doing that, is there any other discussion on this form? We definitely want to hear Cindy's comment if we can figure out how to get it.
Well, while we're waiting for that, I'll just mention one thing I just had an aside with Jen, but we do have in this outline anyway, a buyer agency section talks about the buyer representation agreement. So that exists, to Candy's comment, that exists currently. So it could be just a matter of, do you feel like the time that's allocated is appropriate if you wanted to make any changes there? But there is at least some language there already that talks about buyer representation agreement and buyer agency.
And I think that time that's there is fine. We don't even know what the settlement's going to look like other than all the speculation until NAR makes a change to it. Cindy, can you hear us now?
She's trying to call, looks like. Then that's the whole thing where you got to type in.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. That's the best sound in the world. Go ahead.
All right, and I think, hold on, let me mute my computer. I do believe that, and it's not working, it was addressed, because I was going to say the same thing about what Candy said about it being addressed already in that top.
We lost you, but I think what you were saying, give us a thumbs up if we captured it. You were going to say the same thing that Jen and Candy said, that it's already addressed and that you were pointing out that it was addressed above. Okay, perfect. So we've got that. So is there any other comment from anybody on the committee? If not, in order to move forward, we'll need a motion. Mike?
Yeah, Bill, I make a motion that we move forward with the law of agency changes as written.
All right, now we need a second.
I'll second that.
What's the one?
All right, all in favor, raise your hand using the hand function, please, on Teams, All right, we have 10 in favor. All opposed, we'll let the people that raise their hand take your hand down. All opposed, please raise your hand. Motion carries. All right. I like these meetings so much better in person. Agenda item number 10, discussion regarding agenda items for 2024, including the next meeting. And Vanessa, you were going to provide instruction on this or introduction.
An introduction, and I can let Jen cover some of this introduction as well. But we've in working on our sort of legislative wish list at the agency, one of the items is to take you can say it better than I can, Jeff, but it's
To basically do what we did during the last legislative session with the real estate broker requirements, which is to ask the legislature for authority rather than having those requirements laid out in statute, have the authority to lay them out in rule. That will give us a little more flexibility in terms of considering like out-of-state broker licenses, college course equivalency. Well, I guess not that one so much. But to be able to establish substantially equivalent requirements. If we had the authority also in the rule to determine the content requirements for qualifying courses, that would give us a lot more liberty that way to, if we wanted to see some more, the word is not transparent, but it is, I guess equivalency is the word, between other states and this state. What this committee might want to look at is removing all of the Texas. Right now, all of our pre-licensing courses have Texas specific content in them. So somebody who wants to come in from another state, essentially there is no way for them to submit to us a course and for us to consider it equivalent. But if we had the authority to prescribe the content of the course by rule rather than by statute, we could consider doing something like removing all of the Texas components from all of the basic courses, like, you know, from each of the courses, and then creating a separate course that is a Texas specific course, thus allowing a little bit more flexibility, reducing barriers for those that may want to come over. And also it may be a good learning strategy in and of itself to have a course that is all Texas. When you consider that we have the national exam, you have the state exam. So anyway, what we're talking about is the very first steps in considering a legislative initiative to move this authority over to us. Whether or not we do any of those things is not necessarily the point, but it does allow for flexibility should the committee or the commission want to make any of those recommendations in the future.
And so that, with that said, you know, the commission has said that's something that they'd be interested in, but it is a legislative change, and it's, you know, as you're opening up these course outlines, instead of having you do essentially double work should this happen, right? Because if it does, you're going to need to go back through those, see what you would want to do with them. Is it, you know, that Texas specific course, things like that. So that's the heavy lift. But session, you know, I think you're probably realistically looking at, well, earliest would be a 9/1, most likely effective date. So, and even then, I think it's probably more than that because there's a runway typically. But all of that said, probably not moving forward with the course outlines right now. Taking a pause on that is a good idea. But we wanted to hear from this group. Are there other ideas, things that you want to work on that's within the purview of this group for future meetings? And we want to just give you that background so that you know why, you know, we're taking a little bit of a pause on the course outlines, just not wanting you to do double work. But we're also doing a similar thing with all of our committees right now too, of, you know, what are there things that you have a true desire to address in the future, including the next meeting, a little bit of a, you know, throw it all out there. No idea is a bad idea until it is. But just throw it out there and start talking about it.
Okay, I'll open up the floor to the committee. Remember, no idea is a bad idea. We heard it here first. Well, I'll throw one out that Jen's going to tell me is a bad idea, but I'm going to throw it out anyways. And I want to reopen the discussion of proctored exams. And honestly, take a look at why we're doing that when the exam at the state and the national level is proctored, and why we're making it harder on the students to take their exams when they're online courses.
I'm not mad.
Right?
Thank you, Chair. So just clarify for me, you want to take a look at removing the need to have the online exam for the 6 qualifying education courses proctored? Is that what you want to look at?
Certainly want to look at it. Yes, sir.
Okay, cool.
They're definitely going to be proctored when they take the state and the national, but definitely want to discuss the other reasons. Mike?
Cool.
Bill, brave of you to bring that up. But I'm going to come alongside you on this one. The proctoring requirements certainly should be looked at. If not removed, then vastly changed to allow more flexibility for students to complete those exams in an environment either at home or in the classroom where they're not proctored in the degree that they are now.
Okay, thank you. Are there other topics that we'd like to bring up for an agenda?
I have one. I would like the committee, and this may not be in the purview of this committee, so Jen and Vanessa, let us know, but the photo ID requirements for live virtual broadcast courses, I would like us to look at the necessity for those and how they differentiate from just straight online courses. I just think that it seems like it's a bit overkill having to require a photo ID for an online broadcast course when you could easily timestamp and show that the student was there the entire time, et cetera. So just something to consider there. It just is, it's just overkill having to do a photo ID for live broadcast courses.
Okay. I like the way we're thinking. Other comments? All right. Hearing none, we have those 2 items, and I'm sure if other things come up, you can send an email to Vanessa.
Please
and
do.
we'll go from there. So item number 11 is our next meeting dates, which will be Monday, July 8th and Monday, October 7th. Is there any reason to have to change those dates? All right. Even as much as we hate online meetings, we got done with this meeting in 43 minutes. So I'll move to adjourn the meeting. I believe we're adjourned unless there's something else.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks,
great day.
everybody.